Hello and welcome to livealittlehigher.com. Today we will be speaking about mind control in our class of Living Happy, and it's the 7th chapter of the book The Hasidic Approach to Life by Rabbi Shlomo Majewski. So what is mind control? We have learned till now that a person should always be besimha, should always be happy, because he knows that everything comes from Hashem. So if everything comes from Hashem, our thoughts also come from Hashem. The mind is a very powerful house in our brains, and it only can contain one thought at the same time. It cannot contain two thoughts at the same time. It can only contain one. And from Hasidic teachings, we learn also that the emotions, the feelings are generated in our brains, are generated in our minds. So whatever we're thinking is what we're feeling. And you can do this experiment in your free time. You can see that whatever you're thinking about is what's going to be generating your your feelings. So if you're contemplating a sad event and you're thinking about it, you're going to feel sad. If on the other hand you look out in the day and it's a blue sky and a sun and a shining sun and the day is beautiful and you're thinking about, oh Hashem, thank you, what a beautiful day, I love the feeling of the sun hitting my body, it warms me up, then you're going to be generating feelings of wellness. And this is how it works. So really, pain and suffering are generated in our minds. It's not that something that happens to us won't generate the pain, but it's not what happens to us is the thoughts that we have in our mind that give us the pain and the suffering. So pain is something that is unavoidable in life. We cannot go through life without experiencing pain. That would make us like wood sticks or iron sticks that have no feelings. Human beings have feelings, we feel, and the more we know, this is what King Solomon, the wisest of men, said, the more a person knows, the more pain he will feel. So for example, if a person has lost a loved one, a parent for example, and he has experienced the pain of losing a loved one, one day a friend loses a parent, that friend will have more empathy towards him, or will feel more with that person because he knows what it is to lose a parent. Whether if they have a friend that, thank God, has not lost a parent, that friend can be very helpful and beautiful friend, but he will never feel what the friend is feeling. So the more we know, the more we feel. And this is beautiful. It's part of life, and feelings is not something that we should store in a closet. Feelings are very productive, but they have to be the right feelings for the right time. And many people that are not well, sadly, is because their minds are generating thoughts that are not conducive for creating the right feelings, and sometimes they feel things that are not even real. They shouldn't be experiencing those type of feelings because their thoughts are not healthy thoughts. So to make an explanation about how this works, Rabbi Majewski gives an example of a man that gets on a subway and he has an encounter with someone that is very not comfortable, and once he gets off the subway he's very upset, he's very angry, and he's walking home and he's very upset and he's thinking about what happened and he's getting angrier and angrier and angrier, and when he gets home he's really very angry, and then 10 minutes later the phone rings and he answers the phone, and it's a friend from childhood that he hasn't spoken to in many years, and this friend is in town and he found his phone and he wanted to meet with him and catch up in life, and in one instant these feelings of anger just disappear. Why? Because his thoughts are not contemplating what happened to him in the subway. The thoughts transferred to the friend that he hasn't seen in many years, and now they're reconnecting and he wants to be with his friend. So from here we see how a person can really change his mood just by the thoughts he's containing in his head. The soul has three garments, which is thought, speech, and action, And these faculties that we have really are under our control. We can control them. We are master of our thoughts, of our speech, and our actions. We are not robots, and we're not dolls, and we're not moved by remote control by Hashem. We have free will, and in these three areas, we have the ability to be able to control them. It's very easy for some people, it's more difficult for others. But nevertheless, we do have the ability to control these garments of our soul. So another example that Rabbi Majewski gives about how the mind is such a powerful place, and we really should develop this place in which we can control what comes in. We really can't control the thought that comes inside of our head. Hashem puts them in the head. But we can control if we contemplate it or we don't contemplate it. We control if we allow it to stay there and then mingle with us, or we throw it out of our heads. So that's our free will, is if we allow it or we don't allow it. And he gives an explanation of a Rebbe. He's a very famous Rebbe, the Motzitzer Rebbe. And he was a great Hasidic leader, and also he was a composer. And this Rebbe was very old, and he needed a life-saving surgery. And the doctors were very scared to make this surgery on him because they thought that the anesthesia was not going to allow him to get through the surgery. And the only option he had was to go through this surgery without anesthesia. And he agreed to go through the surgery, and he told the doctors, look, I have an ability to control my mind and to control my body. So I'm going to compose a melody while you're performing the surgery. Once I start singing it, then you can start the surgery because I'm going to be in a different place. And it was like that. And they were able to do the surgery. It was a very long surgery, 36 stanzas of his music that were composed on in that surgery table. And it was not a miracle. It came from the ability of this Rebbe to control his thoughts. And his mind was completely engrossed in this melody, and he didn't even feel the pain of the surgery. So here he also explains to us how to get rid of these nasty thoughts that are bombarding our minds all day. First of all, I think that what we see and what we hear really have a very effect on our minds, a very big effect. If you are used to seeing very gruesome TV shows and the news and very graphic things, obviously this is what your mind is contemplating, and a lot of people suffer from anxiety attacks, and they can't go to sleep, and they have insomnia because of what they bring into their thought process during the day. So how do we get rid of these nasty thoughts? How do we control our minds? So he gives an analogy of a person that has a neighbor that is a nuisance, and this neighbor is always knocking on his door and always trying to get into his house and have coffee with him and have a piece of cake and asking for the hammer. And one day is the hammer, one day is the ladder, but this is really obnoxious. It's every day, many times during the day, and the neighbor lets him in, he gives him the coffee, he gives him the cake, and this neighbor continues to come. Why? Because he gives him attention. Then the neighbor gets upset and he says, okay, no more, I'm not going to allow this neighbor to keep on coming into my house, and it's gotten out of control. So the next time the neighbor comes and starts knocking on the door, the other person starts screaming, leave me alone, I'm fed up, I don't want to be here anymore with you, I cannot be lending you everything every day, just leave me alone. So that neighbor is going to keep on coming. Why? Because you give him attention. So the third option is to ignore the neighbor. It's very drastic, but you ignore him. You don't answer the doorbell, you don't answer the phone, you make believe you didn't hear him, you keep quiet in your house, and this neighbor is going to come 1, 2, 3 times, and then he's going to get the message and he's not going to come again. Why? Because you ignored him. So the same way is with our minds. Every time a nasty thought comes into your mind, if you allow it in and you give it coffee and you give it cake and you're contemplating, that thought is going to be bumping inside of your head many, many times during the day. If you on the other hand, say, leave me alone, don't bother me anymore, I'm fed up with you, I don't want to think about this anymore, he is going to continue coming into your head because you give them attention. But if you ignore that thought and you change your thought, you have a file of nice thoughts or something else to do while this thought comes into you, and you say, okay, every time that thought comes into me, I'm going to say Shema Israel. Or every time that thought comes into me, I'm going to call a friend. Or every time that thought comes into me, I'm going to say a Tehillim for someone that's sick. I bet you that it's going to be 1, 2, 3 times, but the 4th time that thought will disappear. It won't bother you ever again. So try this at home. Be master of your faculties. Be the king in your head. Don't allow nastiness to come into you and ruin your day and your life. And live a little higher. Thank you.